Hello guys and welcome to today's video. Today we're taking a look at top 10 most significant historical figures. Let's start off by taking a look at number 10. Number 10 is former US President Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was born on April the 13th, 1743, and he was one of the founding fathers and the primary author to the Declaration of Independence, which was adopted on the 4th of July 1776. In 1789, Jefferson became the U.S. first Secretary of State under President George Washington, which he functioned as until 1794. In 1797, he then became the U.S. second ever Vice President under John Adams until 1801. In the same year, he then gained the presidency, which he held until 1809. During his presidency, some of his most notable accomplishments include overseeing the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, which doubled the size of the United States by acquiring territory from France for $15 million. He was also a strong proponent of religious freedom. He authored the Virginia State for Religious Freedom, which became a precursor to the First Amendment of the US Constitution. In response to British and French interference with American merchant ships during the Napoleonic Wars, Jefferson implemented the Embargo Act, which prohibited American ships from trading in foreign ports. The act aimed to pressure Britain and France, but ended up harming the US economy and was highly unpopular. Jefferson died on the 4th of July, 1826. Number 9. Number 9 on the list is Alexander the Great, one of history's most legendary figures. Alexander was born on 356 BC in Peia, the ancient capital of Macedonia. He was the son of King Philip II of Macedonia and Queen Olympias. Alexander was tutored by the philosopher Aristotle from the age of 13. Aristotle instilled in him a love for learning, philosophy, and the arts, which influenced his approach to leadership and governance. Alexander became king of Macedonia in 336 before Christ after the assassination of his father Philip II. He was only 20 years old at the time. He quickly dealt with internal and external threats to his rule, demonstrating his military and political acumen by securing his position and unifying the Greek city-states under his leadership. In 334 BC, Alexander began his campaign against the Persian Empire, which was the most powerful empire of the time. And in 332 BC, Alexander conquered Egypt and founded the city of Alexandria. In 331 BC, he defeated the Persian king Darius III at the Battle of Gaugamela, leading to the fall of the Persian Empire and securing his control over the vast Persian territories. Alexander was known for spreading Greek culture by encouraging his soldiers to marry the local women of the regions he conquered. He also founded over 20 cities, many of which were named Alexandria. Alexander was also a military genius, and his tactics and strategies are still studied to this day. Alexander died in Babylon in 323 BC under suspicious circumstances. Many thought that he had been poisoned, but no one knows for sure how he died. Number 8. Number 8 on the list is the mentor of Alexander the Great, Aristotle, who was one of the most influential philosophers and scientists in history. Aristotle was born in 384 BC in Stagira, a small town in northern Greece. At the age of 17, Aristotle went to Athens to study at Plato's academy, where he remained for about 20 years. Upon Plato's death in 347 BC, Aristotle left Athens and spent some time traveling and studying in Asia Minor, today's Turkey. And in 343 BC, Aristotle was invited by King Philip II of Macedonia to tutor his son, Alexander the Great. In 335 BC, Aristotle returned to Athens and founded his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike Plato's Academy, the Lyceum was characterized by a more empirical and systematic approach to study. Aristotle's teaching style involved walking around the Lyceum while discussing various topics with his students. After the death of Alexander the Great, Aristotle left Athens and died a year later in 322 BC in Chalkix. The work of Aristotle has played a prominent role in shaping intellectual history, and this definitely won't be the last time that he's mentioned on this channel. Number 7. Number 7 on the list is probably the history's most infamous figure, Adolf Hitler. Hitler was the dictator of Nazi Germany from 1934 to 1945. And he was born on April the 20th, 1889 in Braunau am Inn, a small Austrian town near the German border. In 1990, Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, which later became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the NSDAP. In 1923, Hitler attempted to overthrow the Weimar Republic in the failed Beer-Hall Putsch. He was arrested and sentenced to prison, during which he wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his ideology and future plans for Germany. After his release, he focused on gaining power, which he did in 1933 when he was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Hitler quickly violated the Treaty of Versailles by rebuilding the German military and pursuing aggressive territorial expansion. In 1938, he occupied Czechoslovakia, and on September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, leading to the outbreak of World War II. Hitler's regime implemented widespread anti-Semitic policies. Hitler and his regime also orchestrated the Holocaust, which led to 6 million Jews and millions of others being systematically murdered. From 1942 and onwards, Germany faced multiple military defeats, the most prominent being the Battle of Stalingrad, where they lost to the Soviet Union in 1943, and when the Allied invasion of Normandy took place in 1944, also known as D-Day. As Allied forces closed in on Berlin, Hitler retreated to his underground bunker, and on April 30th, 1945, with Germany facing imminent defeat, he committed suicide alongside his wife, Eva Braun. Hitler's death marked the end of the Third Reich, and Germany surrendered on May 7th, 1945. And with that, World War II was over. Hitler's life is a sobering reminder of the dangers of totalitarianism, extreme nationalism, and unchecked power, a dark spot on the world's history. Number 6. Number 6 on the list is the first ever US president, George Washington. George Washington was born on February the 22nd, 1732 in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He is often referred to as the father of his country and played a pivotal role in the founding of the United States. In 1787, Washington was elected president of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. And 2 years later, in 1789, Washington was unanimously elected as the first president of the United States. He served 2 terms as president, and his presidency ended in 1797. His presidency saw the establishment of key institutions such as the National Bank and policies that strengthened the federal government. Washington's foreign policy was marked by neutrality, which kept the United States out of the conflicts between Britain and France. Washington died 2 years after his ended presidency on December 14, 1799, at the age of 67. Number 5. Number 5 is also former President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States and is widely regarded as one of the most significant figures in American history. He was born on February 12, 1809 in a log cabin in what is now Kentucky. Lincoln became a self-taught lawyer, passing the bar examination in 1836. In 1860, Lincoln was elected as the 16th President of the United States. His election ultimately triggered a civil war lasting from 1861 to 1865. During the Civil War in 1863, Lincoln declared the slaves as free, which also shifted the focus of the war to more of a moral imperative. In November 1863, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, dedicated to the soldiers who died in the Battle of Gettysburg. Lincoln also strongly supported the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. It was passed by Congress in January 1865 and ratified later that year. Lincoln was re-elected in 1864, and he began planning for the reconstruction of the South and the reunification of the country. Unfortunately, Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth on April 14, 1865. Lincoln's contributions to the American society and his unwavering commitment to justice and equality have cemented his place as a pivotal figure in history. Number 4. Number 4 on the list is William Shakespeare, who is often hailed as the greatest playwright and poet in the English language. Shakespeare was born on April 23rd, 1564, and he likely attended the King's New School in Stratford, where he would have received a classical education including studies in Latin, grammar, and literature. At the age of 18, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway, who was 8 years his senior. They married in 1582. By 1592, Shakespeare had moved to London and begun his career as an actor and playwright. He quickly gained recognition and success in the London theatre scene and became a shareholder in the Globe Theatre, which was built in 1599 but already destroyed by a fire in 1613. Shakespeare wrote approximately 39 plays, and some of the most famous include Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. Shakespeare died on April 23rd, 1616. Before we get on to the top 3, please be sure to subscribe if you liked this video, and don't hesitate on leaving ideas for future videos in the comments. Number 3. Number 3 on the list is Muhammad, the founder of Islam. Muhammad was born around the year 570 in Mecca, a city in present-day Saudi Arabia. In 610, at the age of 40, Muhammad received his first revelation from the angel Gabriel. This event marked the beginning of his role as a prophet of Islam. Muhammad began preaching the message of the worship of one God, Allah, and calling for moral and social reforms. In 622, facing escalating persecution, Muhammad and his followers migrated from Mecca to Yathrib, later renamed Medina. This event, known as the Hijra, marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar. Tensions between the Muslims in Medina and the Quraysh in Mecca led to several battles, and in 628, Muhammad negotiated the Treaty of Hudaybiyah with the Quraysh, which established a 10-year truce and allowed Muslims to make the pilgrimage to Mecca. Muhammad died on June 8, 632 in Medina, and the revelations received by Muhammad were compiled into the Quran, the holy book of Islam. Number 2. Number 2 is no other than the infamous Napoleon Bonaparte, who was one of history's most renowned military leaders and political figures. Napoleon was born on August 15, 1769 on the island of Corsica. And at the age of 9, Napoleon was sent to mainland France to attend military school. In 1785, he completed his studies and became a second lieutenant of artillery. And when the French Revolution started in 1789, Napoleon aligned himself with the revolutionary cause. In the following 10 years, Napoleon led multiple successful military campaigns in Europe and all the way to Egypt, until he, in 1804, crowned himself as the Emperor of France. Through the early 19th century, Napoleon engaged in a series of conflicts known as the Napoleonic Wars. He also implemented significant domestic reforms, including the Napoleonic Code, which modernized France's legal and administrative systems. After repeated defeats, he was forced to abdicate in 1814 and was exiled to the island of Elba. In 1815, Napoleon escaped from Elba, returned to France, and briefly restored his rule. Napoleon's final defeat came at the Battle of Waterloo on June 18, 1815, at the hands of a British-led coalition. After his defeat, Napoleon was exiled to the remote island of St. Helena, where he died on May 5, 1821. There is so much to cover on Napoleon's battle tactics and life in general, therefore another video only focusing on Napoleon will definitely be released in the future. But now, it's time for number 1. Number 1 is Jesus of Nazareth, also known as Jesus Christ. His life and teachings are the foundation of Christianity, the world's largest religion. Typically, a distinction is made between the historical and the mythical Jesus. Determining the historical Jesus often involves analyzing ancient text, archaeological findings, and historical context. Jesus was likely born 4 BC in Bethlehem and grew up in Nazareth, a small village in Galilee. Around the age of 30, Jesus began his public ministry preaching about the kingdom of God. His teachings emphasized love, compassion, forgiveness, and social justice. Jesus was crucified by Roman governor Pontius Pilate around the years 30 to 33. The mythical Jesus refers to the theological and legendary narratives that have developed around Jesus over the centuries. For example, the story of Jesus' virgin birth announced by the angel Gabriel. There are also multiple accounts of Jesus performing miracles such as turning water into wine. The belief in Jesus' resurrection from the dead is also a cornerstone of Christian faith, along with the general belief that Jesus is the Son of God and part of the Holy Trinity. Now, there's